What if I told you that right in the middle of World War II, the United States managed to make a warship disappear before the eyes of dozens of witnesses? This is not magic or science fiction, but a real military experiment wrapped in secrets, lost documents, and disturbing reports. In 1943, at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, a destroyer escort named USS Eldridge was reportedly subjected to a top-secret test, aiming to make it invisible to radar. But what happened there went beyond all known science. Intense lights, uncontrolled electromagnetic fields, space distortions, and then silence. The ship simply vanished. Worse yet, it supposedly reappeared minutes later in another city, more than 300 kilometers away. That's right. According to reports, the USS Eldridge was teleported. Others say it traveled through time. But the strangest part is that the U.S. Navy never fully confirmed nor denied it. Officially, nothing happened. So why do witnesses swear they saw everything? Why were documents erased? And what happened to the crew on board? This is the mystery that still divides theorists, scientists, and historians. And now, you will discover the Philadelphia experiment. To understand what allegedly happened that morning in 1943, we need to go back to the dark setting of World War II. The world was in a state of maximum tension. The United States, facing Nazi threats in the Atlantic, sought technological solutions that could turn the tide, including ideas that challenged the laws of physics. Enter the so-called Project Rainbow, a top-secret experiment supposedly aimed at making ships invisible to enemy radar. The idea, attributed to research inspired by Einstein's unified field theory, was to manipulate electromagnetic fields to create a form of perfect camouflage. But according to accounts from supposed insiders, the test went far beyond expectations. Instead of simply disappearing from radar screens, the entire ship vanished from physical space, crossing dimensions, or even traveling through time. The epicenter of this mystery was the USS Eldridge, a real ship documented in naval records that was reportedly used as a test subject in this alleged experiment. And the following accounts are so disturbing that even decades later, they defy any logical explanation. On October 28, 1943, under the watchful eyes of American scientists and military personnel, the USS Eldridge was positioned at the Philadelphia shipyard for what was to be another secret test. The vessel was surrounded by cables, industrial generators, and makeshift control towers. The official goal? To make the ship invisible to enemy radar, vital for protecting convoys in the Atlantic against Nazi submarines. But according to dozens of witnesses, what happened there exceeded any known technology of the time. When the generators were turned on, a green mist began to envelop the ship. Reports describe a strong ground vibration, air distortions, green flashes, and intense metallic sounds, as if reality itself was bending around the ship. In seconds, the USS Eldridge reportedly vanished completely from everyone's sight. Not only radar, but human vision as well. From this point, reports diverge between the unbelievable and the impossible. Some witnesses claim the ship did not just disappear, but was seen reappearing moments later, in Norfolk, Virginia, over 300 kilometers away. And the most terrifying part, the Eldridge supposedly returned to Philadelphia minutes later, with several crew members in a state of deep shock, and others fused to the ship's hull. That's right, sailors with their bodies penetrated by metal, as if they had been teleported incorrectly. Supporters of the theory claim the experiment created an electromagnetic field so intense it bent space-time, opening a dimensional rift. The ship would have crossed this space, breaking the laws of physics as we know them. Supporting the story is the figure of Carlos Allende, or Carl Allen, who claimed to have witnessed everything aboard another ship. He sent letters to researcher Morris Jessup detailing the event with frightening accuracy. These letters were later analyzed by the Navy, and Jessup himself died under suspicious circumstances. Coincidence? Other accounts go further, stating some Eldridge crew members suffered irreversible psychic effects, temporarily disappearing or being found days later with no memory of what happened. A phenomenon known as lock-in allegedly affected some sailors, who spontaneously entered a state of invisibility for short periods. Some say a few disappeared entirely, never to be found. Although these accounts are often dismissed as fiction or delirium, the number of testimonies and technical details raises a troubling question. What if the U.S. Navy did test something they didn't fully understand? If the goal was only to hide the ship from radar, why do so many reports speak of teleportation, time travel, and physical distortions in human bodies? Meanwhile, the USS Eldridge did exist. It was officially listed in the Navy fleet decommissioned years later, and sold to Greece, renamed and dismantled decades afterward. But records of its movements during October 1943 are scarce, conflicting, or simply missing. And the deeper you dig, the more this story seems to slip through the edges of what we call reality. If the alleged teleportation of the USS Eldridge already sounds absurd, what they say happened to the crew is even more terrifying. We're not just talking about nausea, dizziness, or simple mental confusion after a military test. Reports describe true physical and psychological aberrations. Witnesses say that when the ship reappeared at the Philadelphia shipyard, some sailors were screaming in absolute despair, others appeared unconscious, and some fused to the ship's steel hull. Legs, arms, even faces had passed through metal structures as if during the jump. Their bodies had been partially integrated into the ship. It's a grotesque image, almost impossible to conceive, but repeated with disturbing detail across different sources. And it doesn't stop there. Other crew members reportedly went completely insane. Some showed deep amnesia, unable to remember even their own names. There are accounts of soldiers in catatonic states for days, staring into nothingness, and others who simply vanished for moments, as if out of phase with reality. Theorists call this temporal mismatch effect, where the individual is not fully present in this plane of existence. And there are more extreme cases. Sailors burned alive without fire. Men who appeared hours after the experiment claiming to have lived weeks elsewhere. And a bizarre report of a soldier found wandering a deserted road after the war, claiming to have been trapped in time. These side effects fuel an even scarier theory, that the experiment didn't just teleport the ship, but broke the barrier between dimensions. This would explain the confusion and bodily mutations. Some alternative physicists claim the electromagnetic field generated was so intense, it distorted space-time around the ship, destabilizing the atoms of the bodies present. This resulted in an imperfect reintegration upon return, as if the sailors' molecules rearranged incorrectly. Bold theorists even suggest the crew had contact with non-human entities or planes during the time they disappeared. Although this idea sounds absurd, it is not uncommon in cases reported by supposed survivors of secret experiments or even UFO phenomena. Some occult scholars say the experiment opened a dimensional rift, and that the true secret was not invisibility, but access to parallel realities. The U.S. Navy, of course, denies everything, but the absolute silence about the crew's fate only fuels more theories. No official records were published about those involved, their medical outcomes, or any explanation for the alleged physical effects. Many involved, according to independent researchers, vanished from military records soon after the experiment. Coincidence? Or a deliberate cover-up? The most disturbing part is that if all this is true, the scientists involved may have lost control of what they created. The Philadelphia experiment would have crossed the limits of technology and touched on something humanity is not ready to understand. And the victims, ordinary men serving in the Navy, paid the price for a breakthrough that should never have been tested. A price buried under layers of denial, silence, and missing documents. Despite numerous reports, eyewitnesses, and supposed letters from witnesses, the official U.S. government version is clear and absolutely categorical. The Philadelphia experiment never happened. According to the Navy, the USS Eldridge was never at the Philadelphia shipyard on October 28, 1943. Official records say it was sailing elsewhere in the Atlantic on routine operation, with no secret experiments involved. But this response, rather than closing the mystery, only increased suspicion. After all, if nothing happened, Why so much effort to deny something that supposedly never existed? The main whistleblower, Carl Allen, also known as Carlos Allende, claimed to have witnessed the disappearance of the USS Eldridge from a nearby ship, the SS Andrew Furuseth. He sent detailed letters to researcher Morris Jessup, describing the experiment with surprising precision. Jessup, a respected UFO phenomenon scholar, became obsessed with the information and investigated the case deeply. But mysteriously, his life ended tragically. He was found dead in his car, suspected suicide, shortly after receiving documents edited by a supposed government agency with mysterious annotations, now known as the Varro variant. These documents contained comments by 3 different entities, debating technical aspects of the experiment and discussing its implications. To this day, no one knows who made those notes. The Varro Manufacturing Company, which printed the material at a military agency's request, never officially commented, and the original document vanished from public archives. Meanwhile, independent researchers tried cross-referencing naval records, civilian testimonies, and Navy logistics, and found inconsistencies. The USS Eldridge's routes, for example, have gaps in certain periods, and some documents were supposedly edited or disappeared. Other reports, like those from dock workers, claim something strange happened that day, though they fear speaking in detail. Even renowned scientists like Albert Einstein have been associated with the project, though there is no direct proof he participated. The theory is based on the concept of the unified field, which Einstein explored late in life but never fully published. Many conspiracists believe Project Rainbow was the practical application of this theory, combining electromagnetism, relativity, and manipulation of space-time. In response to growing speculation, the Navy issued a statement in 1990 denying any invisibility, teleportation, or time travel experiments related to the USS Eldridge. They called the story a pop culture myth fueled by misinformation and pseudoscience. Curiously, this statement came decades after the event, and only after the case had gained worldwide attention through books, documentaries, and films like The Philadelphia Experiment, 1984, which reignited public interest. The question remains simple. If nothing happened, why spend so much time trying to erase such an absurd story? Why deny it so vehemently? In a world where secret experiments, nuclear tests, and mind control programs like MK Ultra surfaced years later, is it really impossible that something like the Philadelphia experiment was real, and that the truth was buried under layers of bureaucracy, manipulation, and fear? The official silence in this case may say more than 1,000 reports, because sometimes the biggest secret is pretending it never existed. The most unsettling part of this story is not just the supposed technology behind the Philadelphia experiment, nor the grotesque reports of crew fused to metal, nor the Navy's calculated silence. The true climax is the idea that, for a moment, humanity may have crossed a forbidden line, a boundary where time, space, and matter ceased obeying the rules of reality as we know them. And the scariest part? Maybe it all happened by accident. If the experiment was real, then for a brief few minutes in 1943, humans accessed what seemed impossible: instant travel between 2 places, bending space-time, erasing their presence from the physical plane. But the price was high: chaos, trauma, destruction. No glory, no controlled advance, despair, horror, and cover-up of something completely out of control. And if it never happened, then why do so many people, with independent and consistent accounts, swear they saw the impossible? Why were letters censored, documents vanished, and a researcher died under suspicious circumstances? When institutional silence is as dense as the reports around it, what seems mere theory begins to smell like buried truth. The reality is that the Philadelphia experiment story forces us to face a deep dilemma. Are we ready to understand the consequences of tampering with the universe's laws? How many secrets hide under the label fiction, simply because they are too big, too dangerous, or too inexplicable to accept? The climax of this theory is not just about what happened to the USS Eldridge, but what it reveals about us. Scientific arrogance, military desire for absolute control, and institutional fear of admitting the uncontrollable created a vacuum where the truth was suffocated. We may never know exactly what occurred that day, but one thing is certain. Whether legend or reality, the Philadelphia experiment left us with a silent warning, because some lines, once crossed, have no return. The story of the Philadelphia experiment continues to intrigue us because it doesn't deliver answers. It plants doubts. It doesn't close doors. It opens gateways. If the USS Eldridge truly disappeared even for seconds, it means humanity touched, even accidentally, technology so advanced it borders on the incomprehensible. Science we don't understand. That defies everything we know about time, matter, and reality. But if it was all a misunderstanding, or even a well-crafted hoax, why did the Navy take decades to deny? Why did so many documents vanish? And why has no one definitively proved or refuted it? The truth is, there are moments in history caught between what was documented and what was experienced. The Philadelphia experiment might be one of them. Officially, it never existed. But in the minds of witnesses, researchers, and those who insist on uncovering hidden government truths, it remains alive. And maybe that's exactly what makes it so powerful, the fact we've never been able to close it with a full stop. In the end, this theory forces us to look at the present differently. How many technologies already exist but are kept secret? How many experiments were conducted in the shadows without the population ever suspecting? And most importantly, how far is humanity willing to go, risking lives, physics laws, even sanity, in the name of power and control? Now tell me, do you think the Philadelphia experiment was real? Or is it just another smokescreen hiding something even bigger? Comment below your theory, share this video with someone who loves mysterious stories, and subscribe so you don't miss the next enigmas. Because there's a lot the world never told you, but we will.